Welcome to BBC World News. I'm Naga Manchetti. Our top story this hour: after a terror attack on Kenya, questions are asked over security failings. Top intelligence officials face a parliamentary inquiry over the massacre at the Westgate shopping mall. Welcome to the programme. Other news that we're keeping across for you. Following talks with the President, Prime Minister Enrique Letta says that he'll seek a vote of confidence in Parliament. Chemical weapons experts head to Syria to disarm and destroy the country's stockpile.
Hello, I'm Sally Bundock. In business today, no deal. In less than 24 hours, the US government could shut down as lawmakers fail to pass a new budget. And closing down a lifeline. Barclays stops dealing with remittance companies for Africa for fear funds are helping terrorist groups. But the move leaves millions without the money they survive on. We'll begin in Africa and the continuing fallout from the deadly terror attack in Nairobi. Top security officials are to be questioned by members of the Kenyan Parliament later about alleged intelligence failings. The Interior Minister has already brushed aside suggestions that the government was warned of an attack. Well, today the focus will be on Parliament, where members of the country's Defence Committee will question security chiefs about what they knew and what they didn't know. The government has criticised the United States over a travel advisory that it's issued to its citizens thinking of coming to East Africa. Kenya said the alert was unfriendly and called for it to be dropped. The Interior Minister also tried to quell speculation that more bodies may be buried in the rubble of the Westgate shopping centre, saying that the authorities had rescued all of those who remained in the building. Let's get more on all of this. AnN Soy is in Nairobi for us. And let us just first begin on what will happen today at this parliamentary hearing.
Well, we're expecting this to be a closed-door meeting between the security chiefs and members of parliament from the Defence Parliamentary Committee. Normally, matters of intelligence like this one are not held in the open, but we're waiting to see how the parliamentarians are going to decide to hold this particular inquiry. But as you can see behind me, traffic is building up. This is one of the roads that had been sealed off last week. It was totally deserted for the whole week last week, but just at the roundabout, I've just seen a military truck there, which is an unusual sight here in Nairobi. So in a sense, things are getting back to normal, but still many people asking many questions about, one, the identities of these attackers. The government says that 5 of them were killed. What about the rest? They say that there are at least 10 to 15 attackers in there. So no one knows what the fate of the other 10 or so attackers is. So these are some of the questions that will be put to the security chiefs this morning.
There's also an implication, isn't there, of international discord, perhaps. I'm talking particularly about Kenya saying that at a foreign alert or for visitors, for US visitors, was looked upon not very well.
Well, it is not uncommon for the US and other nations to issue travel advisories to its citizens against traveling to Kenya, especially after incidents like we witnessed last week. But the president and the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga had issued a passionate appeal to these nations against issuing those travel advisories because they say that it's going to hurt the economy of the
Apologies to our viewers there. AnN Soy, who's our correspondent in Nairobi, just bringing us up to date. There is a parliamentary hearing later in Kenya with security officials who are going to be questioned about the alleged intelligence failings that may have occurred. Also, we were talking about a travel advisory that was going to be issued by the United States, which Kenya had said was rather unfriendly. And I think we have you back now. You were just finishing your sentence. I think you were just finishing your sentence on the travel advisory. Obviously, if you could pick up on that, but also reports that we're hearing that bodies may still be in the Westgate shopping mall.
That's right. About the travel advisories, this hasn't been received very well, especially by the government of Kenya, because it depends a lot on tourism, and most of these tourists come from Western nations like the United States. And just next to the road, I can see one more military truck driving out of this scene, but things coming back to normal here. With regard to the bodies that have been buried in the rubble there were 3 floors that we understood collapsed during the siege last week when the military engaged these attackers, and it is believed that there are some bodies buried in there, but the government says that all the hostages were rescued by the security officers. However, the Red Cross has been quoted saying that there are at least 60 people reported missing, and when I spoke to the Secretary General of the Red Cross here in Kenya in the morning, he said that these people are reported missing, meaning that their relatives and friends say that they may have been in that building, but there's no verification whatsoever that these people were actually there. So this is an ongoing process. It is a verification process, and so towards the end of the week we should have a clear picture as to whether there were indeed civilians still trapped in that building.
OK, Anne, thanks very much. Ann Soy there in Nairobi, who will also keep us up to date with the questioning of security officials by Parliament later on today. Now, the Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta has confirmed that he will call a vote of confidence in Parliament on Wednesday in an attempt to avoid fresh elections following the collapse of his governing coalition. The crisis was caused when ministers from the centre-right faction loyal to Silvio Berlusconi were ordered to resign from cabinet. Emily Thomas has more.
A man looking for a solution as his government falls apart. This appeal from Prime Minister Enrico Letta came at a meeting on peace and dialogue.
Let me tell you, if you say some prayers for Italy in the next 3 days, it will certainly be useful for all of us.
The Eurozone's third largest economy is without a functioning government. Mr Letta's uneasy coalition was put together after deadlocked elections in February. It was always fragile, but now relations between his centre-left and former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi's centre-right party have reached rock bottom. Tensions had been rising for weeks following moves to expel Mr Berlusconi from Parliament after his conviction for tax fraud. Then, on Friday, cabinet unity collapsed after ministers failed to agree on a vital package of budget measures. That provoked Mr Berlusconi into pulling all 5 of his ministers out of the administration, effectively bringing down the government. The Prime Minister was furious. In this press release, he accused Mr Berlusconi of a crazy gesture aimed at covering up his own personal affairs. Several of Mr Berlusconi's ministers have expressed displeasure too and given mixed signals as to whether they are actually leaving. On Sunday, the Prime Minister met President Napolitano, the man with the power to call new elections or oversee the creation of a new coalition. The President doesn't want a return to the polls, and after the meeting he said that because of what he called a climate of evident uncertainty, Mr Letta would go before Parliament to see what could be done. A confidence vote will be held in Parliament on Wednesday. Mr Letta says he'll resign if he doesn't win the vote, but he does have a commanding majority in the lower house, and if he can gain support from opposition groupings or a few dozen senators in Berlusconi's party, he could form a new government. There's a lot riding on the crisis being resolved quickly. The political jockeying since the coalition was formed has been relentless, and it's hindered efforts to enact the economic reforms which are badly needed to tackle Italy's debt problems, recession and high youth unemployment. Emily Thomas, BBC News.